Joining us with the pot as a roof. First time ever, second guest appearance. You know him from Twitter as Young Pierre, legendary Carolina Twitter follow. It is Neil Pierre-Louis. Neil, welcome back to the show, man. How you been? Tell the listeners what's been going on in your life.
Yeah, it's good to be back. I remember my last appearance. I think I had a futsal game that day. But it's good to be back here. Not much. I'm in Boston right now. It's cold, very cold. Was at the Fenway Bowl this past Saturday. That was actually I had a better time than I thought, but still overall, like I didn't even pay for a ticket and I want my money back. Um, but yeah, no, it was nice to meet some UConn fans. They were happy. I was happy for them. But that was kind of like a nail in that coffin of that era of football. Like it's Belichick time now. I'm done with a lot of that game and that season. So
See, you say that? Well, this is going to sound cynical. I actually haven't talked on the pod as a roof about my feelings about Belichick. We haven't done a podcast since he's been hired. I'm all in. I was very skeptical at first. Then I was actually like beyond skeptical. Like this is so unserious, whatever you want to say. Then I saw how much money was coming in. Then it seems like he has a plan, and you start seeing all these former five-star recruits are planning on visiting Chapel Hill and everything. And of course, some of them haven't come to fruition. Give him time or whatever. I'm very excited about it. That being said, severing the ties of the Mac Brown era gets a little bit tougher now with the interim head coach of that bowl game sticking around on the Belichick staff. But hey, I'll give Freddie the benefit of the doubt. A lot of guys opted out. This season, this UNC football season was lost back in September. So maybe he just needs some better talent around him and a better coaching staff and infrastructure around him. But that being said, just don't question young Pierre's commitment to UNC athletics. That this man spent his hard-earned Saturday morning, not his money, but his hard-earned emotional and personal hours at a meaningless UNC bowl game. So give it up to Neil for that. But we we brought you on, of course, to talk about basketball, which unfortunately so far this season not looking too promising. Hasn't really given us the glimmer of hope that we honestly anticipated coming out of that football season. Even if you were a skeptic, like I would say that I sort of thought this team had holes going back to this past summer, going into the offseason. Hasn't I would say it's been worse so far than even I would have anticipated. But what have been like, I don't know, just some of your overall takeaways of this season so far? And we'll speak specifically about the Louisville game coming fresh off of that loss in a second. But yeah, what have you seen out of the heels on the hardwood?
yeah, it's very disappointing. And the worst part is that, and I was saying this the other day, like at least with, I mean, you could say this with 2019-20, but Cole Anthony was hurt, right? So it wasn't like, wow, we're wasting like this talent. Once he
Hmm.
got injured that Wofford game, it was kind of over. But I mean, Ian Jackson, man, is just hooping, and I'm like, we're just wasting like this great performance. Like, I don't know, it's weird because what was our first loss of the year? Was it Auburn?
At
Or
Kansas.
was it
Kansas was the first
Kansas?
L.
Yeah, Kansas game. I remember the first half. I'm like, okay, wow, this big problem is definitely an issue. But then second half, like we just looked unstoppable, and I was like, I mean, we lost, but I was like, all right, we're not going to lose these future games because I mean, we play like that at Allen Fieldhouse. Like
Hmm.
this is crazy, and then from there, though, it's like this first half. I don't know what it is about the first half of all these games. Even I mean Louisville, what we were down like 8 going in the second half. Like
Hmm.
I don't understand how it happens every game. I mean, even Campbell, it's like we're winning, but it's not close.
Yeah.
And it's like it's just not a recipe for success at all. And I think the terms I've come with to come the the saying like the
The terms you've come to
I
grips
just
with.
feel like,
Yeah.
yeah, I feel like this team has there's like a there's like a hard ceiling. I don't know. Like I feel like it's weird because they have the ability to. I generally think they still have the ability to beat any team in the nation, but it's not gonna. It's like it's either that or the floor is like low. It's like when the guards can't make any shots
Yep.
and like it's just not happening. Like and it just comes down to the roster, and that's the worst part because at least there's some teams you can look at, like even our Natty team in 2022. Like, I mean, that team was not good to start with, and you can argue like they definitely got hot at the right time, but like
Mhm.
they actually played pretty well in the second half of ACC play. And like Brady Manick, started playing defense, started learning the system and everything. At least like there you can adjust things. I just feel like we have an issue that is literally unsolvable. Like we can't you can't grab anyone. You can't make a trade. You can't make a free agent signing right now. If anything, guys could leave. Like that's the worst part. So I don't know. That's my rant. But yeah,
Yeah, yeah. No, that makes total sense. I share some of those same sentiments coming off of just to almost paint like broad strokes for where Carolina's been this season so far. Uh, I was skeptical of the Van Allen Lubin addition really from the moment he signed, and this is not to pile on Van Allen. I don't want to just because I think Carolina's issues are deep seated, like it's across the roster. It's not just the five spot. I think it's the front court as a whole. I've had gripes with just some of the ways the rotations have been managed, minutes have been distributed on top of like the defensive scheme, offensive sets, etc. I think there's a lot of blame you could put all around. But I'm even thinking like this past summer, my biggest question mark was like Lubin is essentially a 6'6" center. We don't have positional size really at the 1 through 4. What's this gonna look like? But even in, you go to that Memphis exhibition and you even watching the front court guys play, and it was like the blue and white game to where you saw enough to think, okay, maybe the bigs won't be a strength, but they at least won't be a liability. But fast forward a month and a half, it seems like again, I'm not saying it's all on the bigs. I think there's plenty to go around, but it just seems like the bigs are usually in the wrong place at the wrong time, not executing box outs, watching rebounds go by them, getting out of position on defense. The drop coverage is consistently getting exploited. You can even go back to the UCLA game but even this, I would say like it's got to be a better scheme from the coaching staff where you're running drop coverage against Tyler Bilodeau, his game is like he's a perimeter oriented five man. He's a stretch five. Like why are you playing drop against him and just like he was getting open look after open look, and that's been a common theme this season of stretch bigs are killing UNC. You can go back to the Campbell game with Colby Duggan. Like this dude had a career high of 15 going into that game. He's like 6'7", 6'8", not a didn't have a size advantage at all. Not even a great three-point shooter, but because the closeouts were so short on him, he just lit Carolina up, especially in the second half. And I don't know, it's just I shouldn't say every, but most of the glimmers of hope, or even the high hopes I had after the Memphis exhibition, we're seeing now. I think Memphis is one of like the best 15 teams in the country. Memphis is really freaking good. Carolina was up 15 in the second half of that game, and I think they only won by 8 or 9, but it was still they dominated that second half, and it's like that just think was smoke and mirrors, was a mirage for at least compared to what we've seen so far.
yeah. I just that it makes so little sense because I remember that game and being like, "Wow, we played really well." And then you see Memphis beat UConn in Hawaii, and I'm like, "All right, like we're nasty, like we're really good. It's crazy." And then I don't know. Yeah, I feel like there are a lot of issues like you mentioned. I don't know.
So let's talk. We're gonna just to give a foreshadowing for this episode for the listeners. We're gonna get into some big picture ACC stuff, talking about what this Tar Heel ceiling still is in the conference, where maybe you can even rediscover some of that hope that you had. But before we get into that, let's spend like 2 minutes on this Louisville game, just because this I mean I would say unquestionably the nadir of the season. Nah, it's tough to. I thought the Alabama game at home, losing the way that Carolina did, to me was kind of I mean, unless Duke wins by 30 in the Dean Dome, will be tough to see.
That Bama game gave me 2019 Ohio State kind of vibes. I was like, oh wow, all right.
Yeah, were you at that game against Ohio State, or was that like your freshman or sophomore year?
Yeah, it was my freshman year, last day of class. Yeah, I remember going. I was like, man, we're like fifth in the nation. Like, and then
I can't
I was
believe
like,
we're ranked
wow.
top five. How was that team
Yeah.
ever ranked top five, dude? That's insane to think
Um,
about. But remember, I wasn't there, but I remember watching it. I want to say the score was something like 47-44. Cole Anthony hit a big three to cut Ohio State's lead to three. And it was like, oh, if Carolina's hanging around, like Cole Anthony's good enough to win this game himself. And I think Carolina might score like 55 points at most that game. It was so
yep.
ugly, dude. It was
Yep.
hideous. But yeah, that Alabama game I still think was probably the most disappointing. But this against Louisville, like I think Pat Kelsey's going to figure it out eventually at Louisville. I like the system that he runs as far as his teams historically. They control the glass on both ends of the court, push tempo, shoot a lot of threes. I personally have been kind of disappointed in how he's coached this Louisville team. I don't think he's done a great job adjusting to their personnel. They take a bunch of threes. They miss a ton of threes. Yeah, like Louisville didn't, aside from Rain Smith, no one went crazy from three last night. And with how many misses were at the free throw line, it felt like they were dying to give the game to Carolina. And you have Ian Jackson, who's carrying the heels, particularly in the second half, doesn't really touch the ball the last 5 minutes. Last 5:09, not a single field goal scored. Like it's just it's embarrassing at this point. If you're a player, if you're a fan, like I don't know, man.
Yeah.
What'd you make of that final stretch?
Yeah. So going into the game, I was getting breakfast with my friend that day, and he was like, "Oh, we played today," and I was like, "Is it Ludo?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Oh yeah, this is like the game. We have this like 12 game stretch that looks easy on the schedule," and I was like, "This is the game. Like, if we're gonna lose one of them, like or more, like it's definitely gonna be this one." I just
Mhm.
had that feeling. I mean, Vegas also had that feeling because we weren't even favored that game. Um, but yeah, it was just like a weird start. Like both teams not making a lot of shots. Like you mentioned, Louisville was just putting up threes. We had what's his name,
Rain Smith.
Rain Smith, reminded me of Storm Murphy. Just this white dude just chucking up shots against UNC. Like, and then yeah, second half, like Ian is going takeover, which makes sense. It was like I was like, he's not going to keep smoking layups like the first half. Like it's
Mhm.
gonna readjust. Like, and he did it. We looked really good there. And then there's literally one moment in the game which you probably already know what I'm going to say. It's very similar to how the Florida game ended. It's like down one, like you look at the screenshot of the still and it looks like the most routine rebound ever, and we don't get it. And I literally like I actually paused my YouTube TV when I saw that, and I was like, I guarantee you, like they're gonna go on some run. And then there was a moment too where and I don't really blame Lubin for this because I guess I don't know what play was drawn up or something, but it was like we were what down 4 or 5 with 2 minutes left or so, and then
Mhm.
he just had the ball for like 10 seconds, and then just put up like a mid range like air ball, and that's when I turned it off. I was like, that is a crazy like UNC possession. Like I don't
You,
know, like and like I'm not blaming him at all. It's just like that was like, what are we doing, man?
yeah.
And then I saw like I didn't see the last like I was so like I was like, wow, I turned it off. I didn't see the last 2 minutes. We lost by 13. I was like, Jesus, crazy. We're down one point
And it
with
turns on its head. Yeah, this is, I think it illustrates another, I would say, a big picture, something that's plagued Carolina all year is the late game execution, where I tweeted this a week ago, but against Georgia Tech, against Kansas, against Florida, all three of those games, Carolina's last made field goal came before there was under 2 minutes to go, with like between 2 and 2:15, I think, left in the game. Last night they took it to a new level, and it was 5 minutes and 9 seconds left in the game. Didn't make a field
yeah.
goal,
This
and
was the same thing with the 2023 team. I think both games against Duke, they didn't score for the last 3 minutes. Kind of the same thing with like Iowa State, some of those quad one losses. It's like just crazy.
yep, yeah, it's an issue that's surfaced, and I think that's something that if they that I don't know if it's just like I've never claimed to have a great understanding of X's and O's with basketball. I've never been I coached a mediocre church ball team a few years ago. That's of fifth graders. That's like the extent of my coaching experience where I'm like, get in the lab, draw up some new sets or something. Like to me, you got, and well, we'll get into this when we talk about Carolina's ceiling in the ACC. You just got to start like find better ways to get Ian Jackson involved late or just honestly get him the ball. I get like Louisville stuck Chucky Hepburn on him, who's their best defender. Like Chucky Hepburn is not like this elite point of attack defender. He's a good defender in ISO situations. He gets a lot of steals. He's I would say vastly improved even to where he was at Wisconsin. He's still like 6'2". Ian Jackson's 6'4", 6'5". Like, and he was on fire. Give him the ball, let him make a play, even if you just go ISO with him. And just all around, like I kind of thought the way Carolina, whether it was Cadeau, whether it was RJ, played, I mean, selfishly might be too strong of a word, but it just seemed like repeatedly they were looking off whether it was Cade Tyson or Drake Powell or even Ian Jackson in the corner, guys going ISO, who I didn't, who you, based on how they've been performing so far, you don't really want going ISO. Yeah, it's just the lube and air balls like Hubert's got to see that and take a timeout, or someone on the court needs to say, "Oh, timeout, timeout!" Like, get out of it. You had three left, but yeah, just a really deflating loss all around for UNC. And you wonder how these losses start to take a toll on the psyche, where it kind of felt like the UCLA win. They got over the hump. To backtrack like that, it's tough to see, and it'll be really interesting to see how Carolina responds from that. So let's talk. With that being said, there's still 18 conference games left. Um, Carolina's going to play all of them. It's not like they can just pull the plug on the season, even if it's taxing on their psyches or whatever. Let's start with one question, and that's what do you think the ceiling of this UNC team is in terms of where they can finish in the ACC? Like best case scenario, what place do they finish in the conference?
I think second and maybe third. I'm like still high on them in the sense that like the ACC is just not like a good conference. Like there are so many just like bottom feeders in this conference right now,
Hmm.
and I do like there's points in our schedule I think where we can. I mean, you never know. Like, but I mean, pick up like wins that can put some confidence into these guys. Because I mean, right now that's got to be in the back of their head, especially like some like RJ has been making shots. Like it's I think they just need to get the ball rolling against some of these teams. I don't know. Like I think I'm still very optimistic compared to a lot of people, despite my rant that I've gone on today. But I don't think first is like an option though. Like I think the game, it's weird because you never know with the game like 2019, 2020, right? Like I was like, this team is going to get blown out at home, and we somehow lost, which was ridiculous considering you're up like 15. But they were up 15, and like that was just not it. Obviously, the game in Cameron was different, but I don't see us winning the game in Cameron. I don't see us winning at home either, but again, it's you just don't know. Like it's a weird game for a reason.
Hmm.
I do know is our next game SMU at home?
That's our next home game. Yeah, we play
Yeah.
at Notre Dame on Saturday.
So we're Notre Dame. We're away at Notre Dame Saturday. Okay.
Uh-huh.
I think things like they should probably win that SMU game, or I could see things getting like a little ugly
Yeah.
at the Dean Dome. Like I don't know. Like I feel like
SMU
I
is
was
pretty
there.
good. SMU is like I'll get to this. I can go finish your thought though, but SMU is kind of good.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like that's a game where I wouldn't be surprised if the line is very. I mean, we're at home, but I could see the line being very like pick 'em ish, and
Hmm.
it's like I think yeah, talent wise and the way we've been playing, like, I think it'll be a really close game. I just think it's different from 2019, 20, where that was Roy's first bad season since like
Hmm.
2010. Whereas now, like I don't know, things are like very like anxious right now,
Yeah, I think
and
that's a
that's
good
a
way to
game
put it.
I think. Yeah, and if they win that at home, I think that'll really be the inflection point of the season because it's like you know you'd think it'd be UCLA, but again, like out of conference play, and then you start. Well, you already had a game. You start the real slate with the L there. It's like you go home and it's like I don't know, man. You lose that game and suddenly your opportunities left are very slim. Like,
Yeah.
do we even play Clemson this year? I think we do, right? Are we at home or?
I think we play at Clemson. Let me
Yeah,
look
like
real quick.
that's gonna be a really hard game.
Yeah.
Like the opportunities dwindle like vastly. So
Right. Right. Yeah, I'm with
what do you
you.
think?
I think that SMU game is a good one to circle. Is like that. It could the season could go one way or the other after that one. I feel like even best case scenario, I probably wouldn't pick Carolina better than fourth in the league. Maybe third. I just think that like Duke's gonna finish one. Duke should win the league by multiple games. Clemson probably finishes second, and I get the whole Clemson thing where like Brownell is awesome in December and January, and then usually like toward the end of this month, things tend to spiral for the Tigers. Even if that happens, I just think there's a couple more teams more consistent than Carolina in the league who can rise above them. Whether it's SMU, whether it's Pitt, like. Ugh, I feel gross saying that. I'm not crazy about this Pitt team. Like it to me, this is where it reflects poorly on the coaching staff because if you compare UNC's roster to Pitt's roster, in a vacuum, you're drafting players in some order. The top three are probably R.J. Davis, Jelon Lowe, Ian Jackson, and then you can make a good case for like Drake Powell, Seth Trimble coming off the board next before Pitt's second best player, whether you think it's Cam Corrin or Zach Austin or Ish Leggett, like and maybe it's a little bit closer to that. This could be an oversimplification of it, but I think it just reflects like this weird roster construction that's imbalanced. And it feels like the staff has failed to maximize the team's talent level this far. And I would just lean toward a couple more teams who I think can be more consistent, even if I like UNC's overall talent level. Just because we're 14 games in and we've seen how volatile this team can be, where I mean, they haven't really had yeah, they've had really impressive comebacks, but they haven't had a dominant wire to wire win over a power conference team. And 14 games into the season, not at least having one of those, not even having that against Georgia Tech, like to me is alarming. But we'll lean into this ceiling talk for a little bit. So you say best case scenario second, I would say fourth. What does Carolina need to do to hit this best case scenario?
I think if you're second, you have like I'm trying to think who we play. Like you have to beat Clemson and SMU, and then honestly, I don't really think you can lose a game. Maybe one game outside of that, not including the Duke games.
Hmm.
I think you
Hmm.
could get away with losing both of those, maybe
Yeah, I
winning
agree.
one. And then if we were fourth, I think that's just like you lose both. You probably lose one of the Clemson SMU games. Maybe you have to win one of those to be fourth, and then you average from there. Maybe a
Hmm.
loss or two to like, yeah. I haven't seen the rest of our schedule, but like I don't know, like a Wake Forest or something
Yeah,
like
yeah.
another game that would like just infuriate me, but is like you can see it coming, I
Yeah,
guess.
for sure. And what do you think they need to do, like as far as uh, what needs to happen on the team itself for them to get some of these big wins? What do you want to see out of the players or the staff specifically?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's like like the crazy thing is my ideal answer would literally just be like a center. Like I don't know, but obviously you can't do that, and so I don't know. I feel like you got to get creative, and I think what I want to see from Hubert too is just like more like some quicker adjustment. Like I feel like whether it's been a few games now where we're just getting lobbed like 4 or 5 times, and I'm like, all right, this can't happen. Like I don't care how small we are, like that just can't
Hmm.
happen. Like
Hmm.
that many times, it's like
Yeah.
quicker adjustments. They got to come. Like I don't know what they need to do like pregame to get a better start to the game because playing from behind is just not like it's not fun.
No, not at all.
You're yeah, you're getting like we're getting dumb fouls playing from behind. Like it's not ideal.
Hmm.
And like that's not something I feel like they should get used to. So I feel like those are the big things. Like we're not gonna, especially like it literally does not matter how good a UNC or a Duke team is. Like there will be at least two or three road ACC games where you're playing a team you think you're going to beat, and for some reason the shots aren't going in. The crowd is getting into it because you are like, doesn't matter how bad we are, like we're still like we're blue blood. Like everyone
Yeah.
wants to beat us. Like
Right. Right.
those games are going to happen, and you can't afford to be down because like Louisville, it was like well, we were down 8. It felt like we were down 15. Like that's just how it feels on those weird road ACC games.
Hmm.
And there's going to be more of that, and they have to be ready out of the gate. And there's enough veteran experience now where like they should know that too.
Hmm.
So
Hmm. Yeah, I agree completely. For me, I pinpointed four things, and I think that like three of them probably have to happen for, I would say, for UNC to finish fourth or higher. Let's put it that way. And I'll share them in order of likelihood for like how likely I think it's going to happen to least likely. The first I would say is Ian Jackson needs to develop as a playmaker and essentially be either option 1A or 1B to RJ. I just wrote a piece on this for Heat Check CBB, some draft coverage that I was doing looking at Ian Jackson as an NBA prospect, his trajectory and everything. Before the Louisville game, I wrote it before the Louisville game. He had only played as a pick and roll ball handler in 17 possessions this season. Good numbers, 1.2 points per possession in such situations. But I think I would like to see him get to at least get a shot at like running the offense more, making reads out of ball screens, as opposed to it feels like right now he's getting most of his baskets like ISO, some tough shots, which he can make, and it's dope when it happens. He's shot really well off the catch on catching. He's shooting great. He's shooting like 40-ish% on catch and shoot threes right now, and he's been a beast in transition. But making him more of a focal point of the offense, I think, is key. And I just think for his development at the next level, I'd like to see him develop as a passer and see kind of give him a chance to increase his feel for the game. But I think that happens. I think we're very close to that happening. Number two, I would say is Cade Tyson needs to be able to play 17 to 20 minutes a game and make 35-ish% of his threes, 35% or higher, for Carolina to be a top four team in the ACC. You're seeing him get a little more comfortable on defense. You're never going to mistake him for a lockdown guy, but it doesn't seem like he's just being targeted like he was earlier in the season. Made the 1 3 he took against Louisville. Again, I thought he got looked off a couple times when he was open in the corner. But yeah, if he can get up to like 17 to 20 minutes a game and just give you like 6 points or something, that would really help. And have just the threat of another shooter on the court. The third, and here's where I'm starting to worry a little bit about how likely this happens. Elliot Cadeau averaging one made three a game per league play. So he's made, I believe, nine on the year. Yeah, nine on the season so far. So this would have him finishing the year 29 to 30 made threes, somewhere in that realm to have more of a shooting threat there. Just because I think, and I also didn't have RJ mentioned here because I think if Cadeau can make shots more consistently, I don't know, man. His jumper still doesn't look smooth or connected to me when I watch it. I know he's made some mechanical tweaks. But yeah, it just doesn't look smooth. But maybe it gets ironed out. Maybe it works for him. But I think if he can improve as a scoring threat, and you have Ian as more of a threat as a ball handler too, plus Cade knocking down shots, that will make life way easier on RJ Davis, and we won't see these same like see him press, see him miss a bunch of pull-up jumpers. Then the last one that I have is the one that I don't think will happen. I would love for it to. I think the five rotation, it might sound crazy, but I think it needs to primarily be Jalen Washington and James Brown. And I get James Brown is totally getting the backup quarterback treatment where it's like, oh, he could be good. Like you always think the backup can play better. But James Brown at least is he's listed at 6'10". He's added some muscle in the offseason. He's improved his balance. This is a kid who did not start at Link Academy, which is kind of the big knock. His high school development kind of tanked after he committed to UNC. He still led Link in offensive rebounds and he led Link in block shots. And Link is an elite prep school for basketball. Like, throw this dude out there. I think Lubin and Claude are both going to end up being better situational players. Give James Brown minutes. He's the one big on this roster I think who has some long term upside that I would like to see stick around. I don't want him to get him in the portal. So, and if Washington can at least be solid enough on offense and just get in the way at the rim, block some shots. I don't care. He's gonna foul. He's gonna get bullied some, but just at least get in the way. Maybe just maybe that works out. So what are your thoughts on my big four, so to speak?
Yeah, I mean, like I agree with him. It's just like a lot. Like I like that Cade is getting more confident and like I really hope a breakthrough will come. But yeah, it's just like they're and the thing is they all seem so like doable and yeah, like we would I genuinely would not honestly be nervous if like if Elliott can get that shot going, Cade gets going, that just opens up like so many things. But it's also just very likely like these things don't happen. Or it's like and the problem it's like back to the whole thing. It's like we make we're in the ACC tournament or we make the NCAA tournament. It's like the problem is that we're like our team is so restricted that like when these things don't go right, then like we're screwed. And that's
Hmm.
like and that's the single game elimination scenario. So it's tough.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
like I mentioned, I mean, you know me, I was at the Fenway Bowl. Like I just will literally I'll be there. So
Hey, I will keep watching. I gotta say my confidence for UNC hitting its ceiling right now is probably about 30%. And maybe that's pessimistic. I'm willing to be corrected, but just from what we've seen so far, that's as high as I can go. Where are you at? I know you said you're a little more optimistic than the average fan, but yeah. How are you
yeah.
feeling?
Well, now that I'm thinking about percentages, maybe I'm not optimistic, but I don't know, I just love watching the team, so it doesn't matter. But I think that the my ceiling for number two is like 15. Like it's pretty low at this point.
Yeah, yeah.
I think tournament wise, it's for me is like 30. Like it's I don't think it's above 50 right
I that's a good question. How confident am I that UNC makes the tournament? Between 40 and 50%. Yeah. I think like the name brand probably would help to where I wouldn't be surprised if UNC's just thrown into Dayton in the first four. And it's like, just get Carolina in there. They're close enough to deserving it and they'll get some eyeballs on the first four. But um to me, if that happens, I feel like I can close my eyes and picture UNC as an 11 seed in the first four playing a Mountain West school like Utah State and they just smack them and it's like, oh, watch out for Carolina. And then they just get blown out by like a 6 seed SEC school in the round of 64. But
now. I still to this day think that if we weren't preseason number one 2023, we would have been in the first four. Like
they should have thrown us in the first four
I
that year.
totally think we have the resume for it. And I mean, if you literally win any of those quad one games, it's like not even a question. But I think if they the whole tournament run didn't happen, then they have that exact same resume.
Yeah.
That team gets in.
That team, yeah. I would have been that like that could have been had so much chaos potential just to throw that UNC team in as an 11 seed. They very well could have lost in
Well,
the first four. That team was very frustrating, but there's also a chance they would have made a run, just based on what they
they were
did.
frustrating, but I'm so delusional in thinking the whole time we needed a win just to get into the ACC tournament, I was like, if this team makes it, they're making a run. Like it was probably just because it was my senior year and I was trying to
Uh,
speak it into existence, but
mhm.
I was like the most convinced person ever that
Yeah,
that was going to
yeah.
happen. So
There are some parallels. I'll close by saying this. There are some parallels between that year's team and this year's to where there's plenty of close losses. Like that's why I don't know, just my overall state of fandom is like is I get they've lost to a bunch of good teams. I'm ready for Carolina to start being one of those good teams again. But that team was just never able to get it done. And I think that's sort of for better or for worse, tinting how I view this team. So we will see what happens. That's it for this episode in, but I mean, be back. I'll make this promise to the visitors. There will be more consistent pod as the roof in 2025. But big special thanks to Neil Pierre-Louis for jumping on the show once again, our first ever repeat guest. So follow Neil on Twitter if you don't already. It's at young_Pierre24. Is that it?
Yeah.
Had to give him a shout out. Hilarious follow. Definitely makes it get your game day experience more enjoyable to tap in to see his various